Welcome back to a new video. In this video, we are going to do data cleaning on a real-world dataset. Our dataset is going to be about Airbnb, and I'm going to add the dataset's link in the description of this video. Let's start coding. So here is our data card. We have a dataset about Airbnb, and we can see that it says New York City Airbnb data cleaning. Airbnb is an American company that operates an online marketplace for lodging, primarily homestays, for vacation rentals and tourism activities. It's also a service that I generally use. Like when I go to vacation, I generally prefer to stay in the Airbnb places. So it's pretty famous. So let's read the context. Since 2008, guests and hosts have used Airbnb to travel in a more unique, personalized way. As part of the Airbnb Insight initiative, this dataset describes the listing activity of homestays in New York City. Great. So we have the content and the data dictionary in here, and there is inspiration side of things and acknowledgement. Okay, so let's see the data. Like we have 26 columns in here, and we have compact column, etc. values like that. And in here you can use this download button from the link that I'm going to give to you in the description of this video. And let's get to the VS Code for coding part. So here we are in the VS Code, and I'm going to open this page, and you can see we have the Airbnb OpenData.csv. If you download the data from the Kaggle link that I'm going to give to you from the description of this video, you are going to have the same CSV file too. So I will say notebook.ipmb for creating a Jupyter notebook in here, and then I'm going to say Python environments 3.11.4, and I'm ready to code. So at the first step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import Pandas, and then I'm going to say data is going to be equal to the Pandas read CSV and my Airbnb data, and then I'm going to say, let's say data.head for checking if it's loaded successfully, and it seems like it. Yeah, great. So we have columns like ID, name, host ID, host identity verified, host name, neighborhood group, neighborhood, let, long, country. There's 3 dots. We can check that columns by data.coms. I'm going to make it in a second. Service fee, minimum nights, number of reviews, last review, reviews per month, review rate number, calculated host listings count. Okay, so what we can do in here is we can just say like data.columns for checking all the columns we have, and here it is. So we were losing the columns from the country to service fee. So in here, I'm just going to check real quick, like where's country? Country is here, and service fee is in here. So we have instant bookable, cancellation policy, room type, construction year, and price. So great, we have these columns. Now we are going to say data.information for getting a general information about the dataset. So our range index is around 100,000, and we have like in here we have different non-null counts, which means that actually we have add of null values in here. So it says 2 non-null in here at the license side, and 50,000 in the house rules side, 86,000 non-null in the last review and reviews per month side. So what we need to focus is at the data cleaning subsection NA value cleaning part. If we just use drop NA, it's going to drop the entire values we have because there's only 2 non-null counts. I'm just going to call it like data and license like this, and we can see that all of them are N. So we need to drop this column firstly if we are going to use anything like drop NA, since it's going to delete all of our values if we just keep this column. Great. So we can also see the memory usage, data types, etc. from this data.information. So I took a task list from another video, and I'm just going to make a copy paste on that. So I'm just going to call it like this, and we can see that actually, let me do like that, and we can see that like deleting redundant columns, renaming the columns, dropping duplicates, cleaning individual columns, remove the NA values from the dataset, and check for some more transformations. So these are going to be our checklist and the tasks that we are going to do in this video, and we can just extend or maybe I can skip some steps, I'm not sure. I just took this for seeing the steps one by one. So at the first step it says deleting redundant columns, but there's two ways for it. So I'm going to show you the both ways. I'm going to call the data, and here's our data. Then I'm going to say dot columns, and from here we are just going to filter our data. I'm going to do the filtering based on, like, let's say we are going to filter out the rows that we want and save to a data frame at the first method, and at the second method what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop the columns that I don't want in my data set. So one is about deleting and the second is about filtering of the rows. So we are going to start with creating lists like columns to drop and columns to keep. So I'm going to create columns to drop, and I'm going to draw columns to keep. So what we can do in here is they are going to be lists, and let's keep the name, host ID, host identity verified, host name, to country, room type, price, service fee, and actually we can keep until the last review. So I'm just going to take them like this in here, and next what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say from this I'm going to drop, actually I'm going to reverse the names. Also I am going to drop the ID. So I'm just going to take that like this, and I think we are cool right now. I'm just going to delete this bracket, and now these both lists we are going to say columns to keep in here and columns to drop in here. So we are also dropping the license since we don't want any bulk delete of the data. So I'm just going to create these two lists, and we can just check like length of the columns to keep in here and length of the columns to drop in here. So we are going to drop 7 columns and we are going to have 19 columns. So let's start with the first. I'm going to say like first method filtering data. So I will say I'm just going to create this, and then I'm going to say like data, and I'm going to open a bracket, then I'm going to give my list like here is columns to keep. So I will just code that, and we are going to see that we are going to have a data set with 19 columns, that the amount we wanted. So great, we filtered out. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call the shape on the original data frame we have. So if I do that, you are going to see that it still has 26 columns. So we filtered our data frame, but we just didn't modify the original data frame. So whenever we call the data, we are going to have the unnecessary columns too. So what we can do in this scenario is we can just say like data frame, we can set this to a new thing. Like I'm just going to delete this, and I'm going to set this as data frame. And when I call the data frame, you are going to see that we are going to have the new data frame with 19 columns. Okay, so let's continue with the second method. I'm going to say like, let me quickly check what I wrote. First method filtering data, second method dropping columns. So here we have that, and at the next step I'm just going to call the data again like this, and we have the data with the 26 columns. So I'm going to just say data.columns for seeing the exact names on the columns we have. So we have license. Let's say we only want to drop the license. So I'm going to show you how we can drop the license. I will say data.drop, and then I'm going to specify what I'm going to drop like columns, and then I'm going to give the list like license, and I'm just going to make it run. And you're going to see that, let me scroll to the end, there's no license at the end, and we have only 25 columns. You can see from here. So we dropped the license, but let me quickly show you. I think that we still have that license in the original data frame since we didn't set it up. So there's two ways we can set this. like we can say in place equals to true, which I use the most, and we can just set this like data in here. These two both works on modifying the original data frame, but for now I'm not going to do that because I don't want to drop the only license. I have more columns to drop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say like I'm going to come to here, then columns list is going to be the list that I created in here, columns to drop. So if I call that, you are going to see that we are going to have a data frame with the 19 columns, the amount that we wanted at the start. And also I'm just going to call the original data frame again for showing you. It says 26 columns. Also you can check it by that shape like this, actually no parentheses. You're going to see 26 in here. So let's modify it. The both way works, and I just showed you setting to a new thing like data frame. In this method I will show you the in place method. In place equals to true. So from now on, whenever I call the data and any feature of the data, we are going to have 19 columns like that. Great. So we are going to continue with the data frame we have, and we just drop the columns that we don't want to use. Let's see our second step. I'm just going to take it from the clipboard, and it says renaming the columns. So let's actually do this because I don't want the white text to appear in my screen. So we are going to do the renaming operation right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call the data.columns again, and I'm going to show you how we can rename the columns. So let's say we want to rename this with the lowercase. What we can do is we are going to say data.rename, and we are going to specify columns like this, and I'm going to create a dictionary with the old column name in here and with the new column name in here. So whenever I call this, you're going to see that we have the new column name in here. So let me quickly call the original data in here. You will see that it's all uppercase letters, but in the new one we have the name. But see one thing, that it didn't modify the original data frame. So if I come to here and add in place equals to true, you are going to see that if we call the data again, like in here, we are going to have the column name modified. So okay, we have this in here, and we just saw how we can change the column names in here. So let's say you want to modify all the column names at one step. What you can do is you can just say, let's call the data.columns again. We also have in here, but I'm going to show you a different thing. I will say for index in data.columns, you can just say something like data actual index. Since we are iterating over this list, we will say index that, let's say upper. So we are going to have all uppercase letters. Also I'm going to print this information. So let's make it run, and we have the uppercase lettered column names in here, just like we wanted. So if you want to make all of them uppercase or maybe lowercase, you can also use lower, and you will see that name, the N in here is uppercase, and now in here is lowercase, but I'm going to make it upper since we mostly have lowercase letters. You can just make a for loop like this, and you can say an empty list like column new column names, and you can create an empty list. Then what you can do is you can say new column names dot append index dot upper. So I'm just going to make it run, and then I'm going to call the new column names, and you are going to see that name, host ID, host identify, verified, host name, everything is with uppercase letters. So if you want to modify the column names in here, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to modify the original data frame since I don't want uppercase letters. I'm just going to say new data frame to modify, and it's going to be like data.copy. Then I will say new data frame to modify that columns. So we will see the old column names, But what if we set it to new thing, like the list we just created? I'm just going to call it like, let me quickly explain once again. We created something like new column names, a list, and then we just used .append method, which adds elements to list in a for loop. And I'm just going to call the type on this, and we are going to see that it's a list. So with this list, what we are going to do is we are going to set the column names to this list. So I'm just going to say new column names, and then when I make it run, I'm just going to call the new data frame to modify, and you will see that we will have the new column names we have, like all uppercase letters, and also you can just use that columns, and you will see that you will have the uppercase letters. But I don't want them. I'm going to keep using data in this tutorial, but this is a way for doing it. Also, you can do that for lowercase letters too. Great. So I'm just going to call the task list again like this, and I guess we skipped the second one, renaming the columns. So let's check for the duplicates. I'm going to say like data that duplicated. So it's going to give me booleans as a series, like an array type object, and it's going to write like true or false, true, false, true, false. So we have the values in here, and we can see row wise if they are duplicated or not. So duplicate means the exact same for all the values. So we generally want to drop the duplicates. So in here we have data duplicated, and there's trues and falses. What you can do is you can use that sum for seeing the total amount, like it's 541, which means that you have 541 rows duplicated. So there's also another ways to do this, like it returns a series. So you can easily manipulate that, like you can use head for seeing the first 5, if the first 5 is duplicated or not. Also you can see the last 5 like this, and which can be useful is you can just use value counts on this, and you will get the true and false count in here. So let me quickly call the dot sum again. It's going to give the true ones, the duplicated count. So we have this. How we are going to drop this duplicated rows? Let me quickly show you. We have a method named data.drop duplicates. We can do that, but we did it. It returned a new data frame, but what we want is we don't want any duplicates in our data set. So I'm just going to call the data duplicated sum. You will see the same amount in here. So we need to set this. There's two ways. You can just say data equals to this, or you can just set in place equals to true. And I generally prefer this, and I will make it run. Then I'm going to say data duplicated that sum, and you will see that it's going to show us 0. Actually, if we add the parentheses, it's going to show 0. Great. So we dropped and cleaned all of the duplicated rows in our data set. So I'm just going to open the task list again. We did this right now, and it's the time for the other steps. So actually, before this, I'm just going to change the order, and I'm going to remove the NA values firstly, and let's quickly call our data again. We are going to have our data, and how we can check the NA valued rows, like the empty rows like this, is we can just say is NA, and it's going to return booleans true and false cell-wise. Let me quickly call that. And what we can do in here is we can just use that sum for seeing it column-wise, and we are going to see the NA valued rows in here. So we did our analysis, and we come to this step, and we just saw that we have a lot of LA values in the last review side, and we decided to drop the NA valued rows. I said like this because you have other options in NA cleaning side, like you can just use interpolation, you can use forward and backward fill, and you can fill with mean, median on the numeric side, and you can fill with the most occurring one in the text side. And what I'm going to do is, since we are going to drop, I'm just going to, before dropping the NAs, I'm going to drop this column. So it's not going to make us drop 15,000 rows. So I will say data.drop, and I will say columns, and I'm going to give it a list like last review, and then I'm going to say in place equals to true. So when I call this again, we are not going to see the last review side, just like in here. Great. Now we are going to drop the NA valid rows. What I'm going to do is I will say data.drop NA, and I'm just going to call this. So it returned a new data frame, and as you can see, it didn't modify the original data frame. So two steps again, data equals to, this is way one, and you can also do in place equals to true, and I will do that. So when I call the data.isNA .sum, we are going to see that we don't have any NA valued rows in our data set. So let me quickly copy the task list, and we can continue with the next one. It says cleaning individual columns. So let me quickly call the data again, and what we can do in here is, let's say we want this column to be uppercase. So what we can do is we can just call that column firstly at the first step host identity verified. Like this, it returns a series, and we can just say like string, and then we can just use upper, and we are going to see a new series with the name host identity verified with uppercase letters. This is the result we wanted, but let me quickly call the data again for seeing if it's changed the original data frame. So as we can see in here, I'm just going to come to this side, like it's lowercase letters still. So how we can modify this is we are just going to say data host identity verified, and we are going to set this with the operation we did. Like I'm just going to make this, and then whenever I call the data, you'll see that it's uppercase letters. Great, that was what we wanted. Okay. Also, let me quickly check if we have any other columns that we can do operations like this. Yeah, we have instant bookable. Let's say we are going to train a machine learning model, and what we need to do in the machine learning model is we need to have numeric values for training the model. So there is only true and false values. So let's easily change that. Like I'm going to say data instant bookable, and I'm going to call that, and I will say that apply, and then what we can do is it's going to go row wise. So I will say lambda x1, let's say it's going to be 1 if it's true, and it's going to be 0 if it's false. So I will say x is 1 if x equals to true, it's boolean, else 0. So I'm just going to make it run. So let's remember the first three indexes are false, so they're going to be 0, and the fourth one is going to be true. Let's call that. So yeah, just like we want. But I'm going to call the original data frame, and you will see that in here we still have the booleans. So again, we are going to do the operation data instant bookable, and it's going to be equal to the new series that we create. So we are just changing the series. I'm just going to do that, and I will call the data, and let me quickly come to the end side. We can see that we have zeros and ones in here. Also, since we passed integers in here, like if we passed it like this, it was going to be string, but in here we are going to have integers. Let me quickly call so we can check data instant bookable, and let's take a random index from this, and we can just say type like this, and we are going to see that actually we have a type error. Let me quickly check. It says 15. So let me quickly clear off this, and let's firstly get this like this, and then I'm going to say, like, since the index numbers differ, I'm just going to call this one, and I will say 5. So we will have this, and I'm going to check its type. Also, I'm going to fix the error below, like it's numpy integer. Great. So let's say we want to check the 15, and we want to index 15. So what we can do about this is I'm going to say data again, and I will say reset index. So it's just going to reset this index. since the index now is jumping from 0, 1 to 4, 5, and it skips 6 and it goes to 7. So I will just use reset index, and then we are going to just have the index that we wanted, 0, 1, 2, 3, and we need to also set this like using in place true. And after that, whenever we call the data, we are going to see that we have a data with the new indexes we wanted. And I'm just going to come to here and I'm going to change the running cell, and it's numpy integer with the index 15. Great. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to call the task list again, and I guess we cleared all of these steps, and I'm going to call the data for checking if we can do anything else. And at the last columns I saw that we have dollar signs in here, so we can use these dollars for the analysis side, but we can't use in this way since they are strings right now. Just let me show you by calling data price and let's say random index 15 again, and I'm just going to make it run first, and then I will say, as you can see, it's string, and then what I'm going to do is I will say type like it's string. So I don't want that, I want integers. Also we can check other columns, like at the end we are going to say service fee, minimum nights, etc. Actually not minimum nights, it's floats, but at the service fee side it's strings. So let's just modify the price like type price string. So what we're going to do is we are going to say data price, and you use that string. Let me quickly call data.price, call price series like this, and we can just use that head for just seeing the first. Actually 3 is enough. I will say string dot replace, and I'm going to say replace the dollar sign with empty string. So I'm just going to get the new series like this in the format that we wanted. So let's go step by step, since we need to remove this commas in here too. I'm going to set this with data price, and whenever I call this again data price, we are going to have the data without dollar signs. So let's actually remove this. So again I will say, actually let's go cell by cell, data price the string, and then I will say replace again, and I'm going to set this to something like, let's say comma and empty string, and I'm just going to assign this to data price. And as you can see, we don't have this in here, it's 1078. I'm just going to make this operation. Great. So also I think we have still spaces in our data, like we checked one. Let me quickly check. I'm not sure which one was it, but I'm just going to try my chance with the 15, and yeah, there's space. We don't want that, so let's quickly fix that. Data price is going to be equal to the, I'm not going to show the first step, I'm going to do with you data price, the string that replace, we are going to replace the space with no space. So I'm going to make it run, and I'm going to call the data price like this, and okay, now let's check the type of this, and we will get Pandas course series, and let's check a random entry from this. We are going to see it's going to be a string, so we need to modify its data type. So we have a thing that we can just do data price, and then we can just say as type and integer. So whenever we call this, it's going to give us a new series with the data type integer. So we are just going to set this, like let me quickly show you a value from here, like let's say 15 again, and I'm going to say type this time. So we get the string in here, and now we are going to get numpy integer. Also check the first one, the same, and it's numpy integer. So what we want is, we just want this series in our original data frame for getting numeric values. I will say data price, is going to be equal to the data price as type integer, like this. And from now on, I'm going to say data price. And let's pick a random one. It's going to be a integer. Like, let me quickly show you. Type. And we will see that we are going to have an integer in here. Great. So I think that was all for the data cleaning side. Also, I want to show you that how we can export this data we just cleaned. Like, we have a lot of chain in a new data frame, and let's say you want to just save it. Okay, so I'm just going to open destination. I open this and I will say like data. Let's say if I want to write this file into a CSV file, so for that I will say data to CSV, and it's going to be like cleaned data.csv, and I'm just going to make it run, and you are going to see that we have this in here. So let's use like pandas read CSV, and let's just read the data we want, clean data CSV, and we are going to have the data frame that we just modified. Like, we can just understand this from the uppercase letters, 19 columns, 20 columns, since we added index in here. And I'm just going to come to the end side. We have zeros and ones in the instant bookable side, and we have integers in the price side. So why this is 20 columns is we didn't specify the index equals to false. So I'm just going to show you that. I will say data to CSV, and I will say like clean data without index, and I'm going to set the index parameter as false, so we can have 19 columns and we won't have this unnamed column in here. So I'm just going to do the pandas.read CSV again, and I will say clean data without index. So in here we have the index, but it was in the original data frame, like this index, and we can just drop this like we just learned in our tutorial columns. We are going to say index, and then I'm going to set in place equals to true, and it's going to be like after this, when I call the data, we won't have the index column at the start, and I'm just going to rerun these cells and we won't have index in here. Great. That was the case for the CSV files. Let's see for the Excel ones. I'm going to say data to Excel. For saving this to an Excel file like clean, let's say Excel cleaned data.xlsx, and I'm just going to make it run, and it's saved with index again. So if I don't want it to save with an index, I can just do index false in here. So I'm just going to say data index false. So I'm just going to make it run with index equals to false, and we can just observe the differences with calling this two. I'm going to be re-recording when this finishes. Okay, it finished. So let's check both of them. I will say pandas read Excel, and I will say Excel clean data firstly, and I'm just going to make it call, and we are going to see that we are going to have a data with index saved in the data. Also, you will see we don't have any index since we dropped it, and it just finished. Pandas read Excel clean data, and we have this index in here since we didn't specify index equals to false. So let's also do that, pandas read Excel, and I'm going to show you the Excel clean data without, actually let me check its name, like Excel clean data index false .xlsx, and we are going to see we won't have the index column in here. And let's quickly wait for 2 or 3 seconds more, I guess. Yeah, 3 seconds more. Great. So we don't have any index in here. Also, it runs faster since we don't have an extra column in here with thousands of rows, like 100,000 of rows. Great. That was all for the coding part of this video. Thanks for watching. Before the outro, if you come to here, I will be really happy if you can drop a like. Thank you. Let's get to the outro. Thanks for watching the video. I'm sharing 2 or 3 new videos every week about data science and Python programming. you can subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. I shared a free data science bootcamp where I teach Python, Pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, Plotly, Seaborn, and scikit-learn with 3 projects. The video is about 7 hours and it's completely free. You can just reach to that video from the card of this video or the link in the description.